Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm excited for our webinar today on AI-native FP&A for biotech. So a quick introduction from myself. My name's TJ Dadwar. I'm a partner manager here at Abacum. I've been in the planning space for almost 5 years now, so working with a number of different clients and partners across different industries. And of course, that includes biotech, life sciences, both pre-revenue, post. So today we're going to be chatting a bit about FP&A and its importance in that biotech space. And then I'll introduce you to Abacum before we get into that live product demo, which will be run by our head of solutions consultant, George Weeks. We've got George on the call as well. He leads our ST team here at Abacum and has a lot of experience working with similar clients from his time at PwC. And he really does love helping people escape their spreadsheets. So definitely something we can focus on today. And then we'll go into a bit of a Q&A towards the end via the chat box on your screen. So feel free to submit questions throughout, and we'll definitely get to that at the end. And then, of course, if it does feel like a good fit for you and your team, we can go ahead and schedule tailored demos for your specific needs as well. So I'm also joined by Sammy, who's one of our key partners at Adapt1. Sammy, I'll hand it over to you for an intro, and then we can get going.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here today. I've got an exciting session about biotech and how you can bring tech into your financial processes. Um, so I've been working in FP&A for about 10 years now. The first five were all about Excel, doing the budgeting, the planning process with spreadsheets. And I've spent the next 5 years helping companies finally move beyond Excel by implementing FP&A tool. Um, so biotech is a great example. I think it's an industry fully focused on innovation, like developing new drugs, new therapies that can take years before reaching the market. And during that time, most biotech companies they don't generate revenue yet. So they rely entirely on funding from investors, grants, partnerships in order to keep going. And these companies spend like millions on clinical trials with data coming from CROs, accounting, and different teams. And most of the time, everything ends up in Excel, right? So that's where it gets really painful. Too many formulas, too many files, people working on different versions, and no real connection with other systems. So by the time numbers are ready, they are already outdated. And basically, this modern FP&A tool can change that. Abacum can change that. And that's what I guess what we're going to explore today. So, how you can move from reactive reporting to proactive planning so that you can finally make planning faster, clearer, and more reliable. So, that was it for me, TJ. Back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sammy. So just getting into a bit about us, of course, at Abacum, our mission really is to empower finance teams. We want to make sure that their organizations can thrive, and that's through better decisions and faster execution. As a company, we've been backed by world-class investors. We received quite a bit of funding earlier this year. So the community does see a lot of value and growth opportunity with us, and that's something that we're very proud of. We are headquartered over in New York, but we actually do operate globally. We have teams in Barcelona, London as well. I myself am working remotely over in Toronto, Canada. It's my head of partnerships who's based out of Seattle. So we are global facing, and that's really helped our clients across the world in 35 plus countries. We have a number of partners in those regions as well that can work with you too. So definitely a global outlook when it comes to our organization. Onto the FP&A process. So like Sammy was mentioning, typically business leaders like yourselves are really asked to deliver and make an impact, right? But from what we're seeing in the industry, along with what our customers were originally dealing with before they found us, was manual tasks, growing data volumes and silos, endless spreadsheets, and really a lack of streamlined internal communication as well. So I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of those on the call today. And this is really where Abacum comes in, right? We are the most scalable AI native FP&A solution on the market today, really striking that perfect balance between flexibility and then ease of use. And that's really mainly around its multi-dimensional modeling engine, right? Together with collaborative workflows that really makes business partnering easy across different departments, beyond the finance department as well. That, of course, including your budgeting, your reporting, your scenario planning, And here are just a few of those use cases that the solution handles as well. So, really going beyond your traditional FP&A as well. That includes headcount planning, revenue planning, investor reporting, really providing stakeholders with accurate and timely financial and operational information so they can really foster that level of transparency. They can build trust and also really support that informed decision making for their organizations. And best of all, it's a platform that's intended to be owned by the Office of Finance. So that's where really there's no need for it to be managed or maintained by IT or other departments, really pointing to that ease of use and minimal change management. And what really sets us apart from our competitors is a combination of things. One thing you'll see obviously during our demo today is the modern UI, right? Unlike some of those, older legacy platforms that require a lot of deep technical expertise, Abacum is really intuitive. It's designed for finance professionals, like I mentioned. It really does drive that faster adoption and company-wide collaboration. I like to say it's a platform that's built for 2025 and not for 2015. Then we have our data integrations and agility with that too. So we have a wide range of native integrations to connect to your key data sources, whether it's your ERPs, your CRMs, HRIS systems. That really gives you real-time single sources of truth. So you're really working with the most current data that you have, which is always a pain point we hear from our customers too before they join us. And then of course AI powered insights. Our platform has built-in AI capabilities that really help with the predictive forecasting, surfacing key insights, really turning finance teams from historical reporters into strategic advisors for their teams too. So all in all, we do help finance teams save a lot of time when it comes to manual tasks, getting those real-time insights as soon as they can, and then ultimately driving business performance in a positive way. That's really the core of what we do. And that'll be enough from me, and I'll hand it over to George for our product demo.
Cheers, DJ.
Cool. I'll stop sharing.
I will share my screen. There we go. Okay. Cool. So welcome to Abacum. So I'm going to run us through a couple of typical use cases of how our customers are using Abacum. Firstly, I'm going to focus on how we do sort of deeper reporting. So how we're importing CRO data and using that to complement NetSuite or ERP data for our BVA. And then I'm going to show you how you can start planning in Abacum, so how you plan future trials and how you can run some scenarios on top of that. And then we'll spend a bit more time on sort of more like long range planning. So more scenarios, more funding, and the breakdown of my gross to net profits as well. Okay, so now the first goal when we set up Abacum is what we want to do is we want to create a single source of truth by pulling in all the relevant information. So everything you're seeing on the screen, these numbers that you're seeing, these on the actual side are going to be calculated over here in the model section. And what we're doing is in this model, we're writing formulas which are going to be pulling data from over here, which is a data set section. So if you were to become an Abacum customer, the first thing we would do is integrate to your different source systems, as TJ was saying. This could be CRMs, ERPs, data warehouses, putting all the relevant information in, and as often as we need to. A click of a button, be that on a scheduled basis, model it out, and then eventually we're going to display it back out here in these spaces. And what you can see here as I look into the first example is we can really bring in the level of granularity that you might need. So here you can see I'm breaking down some visits to some trials. We have got data from our CRO into the actual site, the study. In this instance, I'm looking here at the stage of each study, the individual patients and the visit dates. And all these things that I'm breaking this down into, this is what in Abacum and generally across FP&A tools we call dimensions. And Abacum, as TJ mentioned, has a very strong usage of dimensions. The way that we can play around and manipulate data in Abacum is very strong. So I just wanted to demonstrate that to you first before going into how we actually use this then to compare on like an budget versus actuals and how we can make updates to forecasts and also play around with scenarios. So in terms of playing around with dimensions, then I'm going to click here into this table. And the first thing you'll notice is that we have the same table view as before, and I can see that this is firstly show me the variable, and this variable in this instance is my total visits. So this is something that I calculated in the models. And then I've got levels here, which we're going to call dimensions. And if I wanted to quickly dive into this by study, I can pivot it like this. So I can see, or even if I want to go right the way down into patient level detail, right? So just the way that you can have all this more granular information coming from the CRO right at your fingertips. Of course, then we can then start providing different analysis of the data. So I want to create sort of like these bar charts here. This is the one you saw at the top of the page earlier, or pie chart, sorry, line charts, combination charts. You name it. We kind of have all these different visuals as well, which you can control from this table builder. So yeah, that's a little bit about how we're getting data in and the level of granularity that we are going to be able to plan at and also do our analysis at. You always can also drill through and look at the underlying transactional details. And I really like this screen because it helps recap what I was saying at the beginning in terms of I'm still here in a space. I can see the formula, which is written here in the model section, and I can see the underlying transactional details that have been uploaded from the CRO. And these are all of the columns that I will tag as dimensions. So when we upload data into the data sets, we basically tag up the columns we care about as dimensions. So here you see study, site, patient, visit, and these coincidentally or not coincidentally are going to be the ones that we are able to break the tables down into. So that's really generally how the tool works, but let's start playing around with different use cases. So in this instance, you can see simple budget versus actuals. And of course, I've got that transactional level information. So now I'm looking into the cost details that make up any of these visits. And here you can see I've got some local currency and then some single or reporting currency under here. Then with all this information in mind, I might want to use these historicals to forecast future plans. So let's go and have a look at how we're doing the forecasting. So as I mentioned at the beginning, what we're going to do is we're going to play around with some different scenarios here. So you'll see that I've got 3 scenarios in play: a forecast, a bull case, and a bear case. And this is looking at the number of visits that number of patients for the different studies, and we're going to also input new studies and the timings of those. And we've also got some some sort of offsetting, so we can see that for any new study, we would have like the expected start date of the day one, obviously the corresponding to the date that we input into this table, but then we might have like obviously different stages, and these are the standard ones that I've calculated based off of historical. So I've got screening starting before and obviously the latter weeks in the subsequent months. And what that's done then is enabled me to forecast out these visits. And of course, underneath, we're going to have the costs related to that. Before we go and look at the costs, however, let me talk about how we can play around with forecasting and playing around with scenarios directly from the dashboard or the space that I'm in. So it's just as simple as double clicking in here. Now you can see if I wanted to update my existing forecast or my base case, I could say, let's update this one to 660, for example. Now this is going to update across the rest of the scenarios unless I've unlinked it. So in this instance, my bear case is unlinked, so it won't update that number because we are potentially not going to run this specific study in this specific site for the bear case. So I could also update the timing here, or if need be, I could come in here and I can actually create a brand new one. So we got ST04, maybe we even want to put a fifth one here, just to, why not? And then here, the site, let's just leave it unallocated for now, we don't know. And let's just pop in, I don't know, 100 patients starting in, let's do something in 2026. So it updates our numbers in the charts. So let's just go for March, let's say. So based on these inputs, so the number of patients we expect to be involved in this study and the start date of this study, we're going to forecast out across the base case, the bull case, and the bear case, the number of actual patients per month here. So that's what this is doing here, using this offsetting all these inputs of the timings. Now, of course, I could then go in and say, actually, for the bear case, it's less, and for the bull case, it's more. So I can have these different month over month. Okay, so these are let's say the initial inputs, the number of patients and the start dates, but then coming down here, you can obviously apply the cost elements, and I'm just using historical averages across my different sites, across my different um, studies and currencies here, and then I'm converting this into a single reporting currency underneath. Cool. So far, all I've really talked about is more on the expense side, and typically this could be capitalized, and then at some point we're going to be looking at releasing it through the P&L. But what I want to now do is take us over to a more long-range plan where eventually we're going to obviously earn some revenues, be cash positive, and how that OpEx CapEx switch can occur. So I've got a second space over here, which I've called long-range planning. So let me take you through how this works. Okay, so in this first view, I've just got a summary of what I'm basically going to see throughout this space, which actually, if I click here, I can again see the navigator view, what we've got. We've got information around like the summary, the funding, some timing scenarios around when the actual projects are going to run, some CapEx and OpEx, and then revenue forecasts. So this is quite a nice view. It gives me the side by side of the three different scenarios. It's given me this gross to net calculation. It's given me the capex and the opex, the beginning a cash balance, and obviously my cash flow activities to this ending balance. And I've got some conditional formatting here, so you're seeing lots of color on the screen. Then we just got the base case over 5 years. And then finally, I've actually given you a monthly breakdown across the three different forecasts and just basically keeping an eye on that cash balance. So you can see, of course, at some point in my bear case, I'm starting to get a little bit close to the wire, whereas we're always going to be in a positive position in the other ones because that's how I set it up. Okay, so then how are we forecasting these upper numbers here? So firstly, we want to look at funding. I think Sammy was saying previously how you guys will be obviously raising money across different sources. So we just want to keep track of where that fund is coming from. And if I wanted to, in a scenario, I could jump in and say, what if we, I could double click in and say we're going to raise more on convertible notes or loans or whatever, or grants here. So I'm going to use that for the starting cash position, and for the rest of the cash burn, I need to use the rest of the forecast. So in this instance, you can see we're going to have a bunch of different projects. So here's the sort of like live Gantt for the projects that we have in play. And we've got some assumptions. So we've got original start dates, we can have some updated dates, and then we can have some just project delays or offsets in general. So again, same as before, you double click in, you see I've got my original start date here, but if, for example, in this instance, we know that by OVEX, we're going to have a delay of the prototype build. So we've moved this from January to February. So we've only got a 1 month offset or delay, but you can see we can capture this level of granularity. In a minute, I'm going to show you a view where we're breaking this down into the individual assets or projects and how easy that is to do that. So if you're thinking, oh, this is quite a lot of information within a single table across all these, I would rather manage them separately. Of course, we can create these individual views as well. And then the offset, this is just simply, I'm saying the whole of the CTP project is going to be delayed by 3 months. Okay, so this has given me this nice Gantt, and this is my base case. And then, of course, we want to have some assumptions around a bull case and a bear case, which you can see in this table here. In this project delay offset, this time I've delayed a couple of projects on the bear case, and I've brought one of these projects forward in the bull case. Okay, so this is around the timings of the when the projects are live, but then off the back of that, I'm going to forecast some capex. So again, we could just see a shift of the original timing to the updated timing, and we could come in here and we could input the actual projected capex across the different stages here. And then finally, I'm going to again here we're just doing some adjustments to that, as I mentioned, and then we've got the OpEx input as well. Then finally, I've got some assumptions around revenue. So I've got my initial revenue assumptions or annual inputs for these different, so this is more top down now at this point. And then I'm just applying some growth rates in the outer years. And then this is just forecasting out the actual start dates of the stages and how where I expect to see that product launch, and then use this as the switch effectively to determine if something's going to be OpEx or CapEx. And then finally, we just got a couple of charts, right? So we've got that gross to net view, like that nice bridge, and then here the cash and EBITDA, sorry, the EBITDA, gross revenue and net revenue charted out as well. Cool. So already shown you a lot of stuff. I'm sure there might be a couple of questions that might be forming, and I'm happy to take them very shortly. Next thing I wanted to show, and it's going to be the last thing, is going to be around how we then create multiple dashboards or views based on these different projects that or assets that I've been talking about. It's very straightforward. So we've already created some at the top of the page here. You can see here I've got leader A. So I'm assuming leader A is responsible for BioVex and CTP. And if we scroll down, you'll see that now this whole page has been filtered for EC BioVex and CTP. And actually how I create those, I don't have to like manually create a new space and sort of like add the tables again. It's pretty straightforward. You come up here, you choose to create what we call multiple subspaces. And then I would use maybe I do it by stage, or maybe I do it by whatever dimension I choose. Let's just choose stage for the sake of it. And I can say like, let's create a view where, everything that's currently an animal study. So I did create, or I could do it across all of them, of course. And then it automatically applies that filter that I was showing you at the top of the page. You can, of course, have multiple filters here. So you could be looking here at the assets also by stage. Or I could even come in here and say, let's filter out certain forecasts. So I have my forecast, but then maybe I want to say, let's look into just the bull case or just the bear case as well. So you can have multiple space filtering, which gives that nice sort of interaction and collaboration, not just with the finance team, but with other non-finance and operational staff. And you can see here, you can comment on cells, you can tag people, you can have back and forth conversations directly in the tables, triggering email or Slack notifications. You can also create workflows. So you can have here tasks where I'm potentially asking for like updates to certain tables. Maybe that's the dates, and you can have deadlines and owners tagged to that. And then finally, what's quite nice is if there were workflows within each of these, you can see that we have a different status attached to each of the different spaces. So if I'm reviewing from a top-down perspective, I can see exactly how likely these forecasts are going to change. And these statuses also determine who has what level of permission. So I might have Ryan here who can, at the moment, you can comment across everything, but I might have it so that he can edit it when it's in progress, and when it's in review, he can only comment. And each time this status moves, it also triggers notifications. So this is how we can use Abacum to drive workflows, starting with that reporting piece that I looked at the beginning, the budget versus actuals, the transactional level details, getting information or comments on reasons for variances, and then finally for capturing inputs and assumptions across the business when it comes to driving those scenarios and answering some of those what if questions. Whole bunch more stuff that I can show you in the tool, but I think at this point, I think it's worth me pausing and seeing if there's any questions at this point, or I'll leave it there.
Not sure we have any right now. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to jump in and put them in the chat there. Cool. We'll give it a couple minutes. George, do you want me to show my slide at the end now, or is there anything else?
No, that's what I had to share. So
Okay,
you're welcome
cool.
to.
So I will share my screen. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So like we mentioned, if you do have any questions, feel free to jump in and put them in the chat now. If not, if there's something you want to take away and kind of give some thought, you can definitely reach out to either myself or Sammy as well over at Adapt1, and we'll be happy to support your conversation around that. And we'll also have a little bit of a follow-up email going out just with the recording as well as from our team. If you do have any, specific questions just over email, we can communicate there as well. But just want to say thanks everyone for joining, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Again, we wanted to keep it fairly quick and straightforward to the point. So thanks, George, for running through it and making it a very clean and smooth a webinar, and obviously for Sammy to join as well. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.